The devastating events of this morning have raised fresh questions about our gun control regime.
Police have confirmed the firearm used was not one of those banned following the March 15 terror attacks, but the gunman did not hold a firearms licence and was on home detention for convictions that should prevent him from accessing guns. Political editor Jenna Lynch has more.
How did this happen? In the immediate aftermath, the Prime Minister wanted to know what was the gun, was it legal, was it a banned weapon?
I did ask a few questions about the nature of the shotgun. There are some pump-action shotguns that could still be legitimately purchased.
We believe that the weapon is a shotgun, so not a prohibited weapon. However, the individual does not have a firearms licence.
Therefore, he should never have had access to a firearm. Add to that, the gunman was on home detention, fitted with an ankle bracelet.
The offender is the subject of a sentence of home detention. However, he had an exemption to work at the site, and so there's no indication at this stage of a breach.
With respect to the measures that were in place or anything related to this specific individual, I think it's quite fair to say right now we don't have a complete picture.
Matu Reid was sentenced to home detention back in March for family violence offences. Those offences prevent someone from being able to legally obtain a firearms licence.
The individual's known for primarily family violence history. There is nothing to suggest that he has presented a higher level risk than was indicated by that history. There has been previous search of his property. I'm not going to go into fine detail about that because we need to work it through, but we have certainly never found him in possession of a firearm.
The government launched its firearms register in June, the final piece of the gun control puzzle they implemented following the March 15 terror attacks. The aim to track guns so they don't end up in the arms of criminals.
I'm really interested to know where this firearm came from. Obviously, it's really early days for the firearm registry, and one of the key goals of that is to understand where firearms come from.
Do you think there needs to be further look at the gun reforms and see whether any more need to be banned?
Just too early to tell at this point.
A sentiment shared by politicians across the aisle.
There are lots of questions that New Zealanders will have, but today is not that day. Today is not a day for politics.
But they do have questions.
Clearly there will be serious questions. How could such a person convicted of domestic violence be out on home detention? And how could such a person who is clearly not fit and proper procure a firearm?
Police believe the man was not politically or ideologically motivated.
So far is that there was no identified political or ideological motivation for the shooting and therefore no national security risk.
Rather, his motivation was more personal.
We believe it's connected with the work at the site, but I can't go into more detail than that.
And as the details become clearer, the questions that need answers will too.
And in breaking news, the Prime Minister has just provided media with an update on the shooting. Jenna Lynch has been following that press conference and joins us now. And Jenna, what's Chris Hipkins had to add?
Yes, the Prime Minister flew up to Auckland around midday today. He's been at the College Hill Police Station talking to police about their response to their ongoing investigation, but he began his briefing with a message of mourning for those lost in the tragedy today.
I'd like to begin by expressing my deepest sadness and condolence to the families and the loved ones of those who were killed in the tragic shooting here in Auckland this morning. The whole nation is mourning with you. The victims went to work this morning as they would do any other morning, but they will not be coming home tonight. Their families, their loved ones will be feeling that, as the whole country will be feeling that. I know that we are mourning with them and we are sending all of our love and support to them. My thoughts are also with those who were injured this morning, and that includes the 2 police officers who were shot at whilst they were doing their jobs. They were protecting the public, their colleagues, and the other first responders who were on the scene, and they are New Zealand heroes. To those who were shot at or who witnessed this event, who escaped harm, the trauma of this event will still be significant. Thankfully, these sorts of shootings and events are not common here in New Zealand. I met with the Police Commissioner and senior police officials this afternoon. I've got confidence that they will investigate fully what happened here, and they will be able to provide the answers to the questions that we all have in time. Those questions include what triggered this terrible sequence of events, where the shooter got the gun from, because New Zealand's gun laws prevent that person holding them legally, and whether there were any flags that could have signalled earlier that this could happen.
Now, on top of those investigations, there will obviously be questions raised around home detention, the monitoring of this individual, and also maybe the monitoring of his property, whether that was checked frequently enough to see whether he had access to firearms. But after all of the work that the government has done in the firearms control space, the banning of semi-automatic weapons, the changing of the legislation as to who can own a gun, and that recent introduction of the gun register, the main question that Chris Hipkins wants the answer to is how did this man get his gun? And the answer to that question may just spark a whole lot more about gun control in this country.
Political editor Jenna Lynch, tēnā koe.